Hello and welcome. So this is going to be a lore reading. Let's see what we've learned by. Let's see what various things we do. I guess we found some like poison cargo and let's see. Got the guy who's planning on making a deal with Kunari and clear some dragons out from a mine. Dragonlings. Newly hatched dragons are roughly the size of a deer and voraciously hungry. They live for a short time in their mother's lair before venturing out on their own. The slender wingless creatures are born in vast numbers, as only a few ever make it to adulthood. The Bone Pit. Sire, I've interviewed the surviving slave this morning. She was horror-struck, but managed to tell me her chilling story. An overseer lined 17 slaves up, one after the other, at the lip of the quarry. The second slave in line was ordered to push the man in front over the edge. The third slave pushed the second, fourth, third, and so forth. The workers in the quarry heard the screams, the crack of bones against rock, and then the survivors' anguished cries as the overseer's dragonlings feasted on the 16 helpless bodies splayed upon the quarry's basin. The woman who told me this story was the 17th in line, spared only because there was no one stood behind her. So the overseer wasn't willing to get his hands dirty, I see. Sire, I recommend we stop this ugly practice. Effective as it may be to motivate the workers, it's also bringing our mine notoriety as a death trap. Stories of the bone pit swirl throughout Kirkwall. The veil is thin enough here. Above that pit, it is practically ready to sunder. You risk more than simple rebellion should the overseer be allowed to continue. A letter from Prefix Sanitarius 35 Ancient. Prefix Sanitarius. The output of the Maharian quarry is up almost a third this season, and the overseer has received accommodation from the Archon himself. You will speak of your findings to no one. A response from Magister Kulen, 35 Ancient. That is a thing with the need to control, well, the question of like controlling mages is that you'll have probably the same problems either way with mages going out of control. It's just the question is whether you're going to need some method to control them. Control the ones who get out of line, and so you're going to need some mechanism by which to do that, whether or not you have the Templars. The fourth time I attempted to cross the border into Navarra from Orlais, and was turned back by the Chevaliers. I decided to take the more roundabout path, a ship back to Ferelden, then around another to Navarra. The outcome was more than worth the trouble. The whole city is filled with artistry, from the statues of heroes that litter the streets, in even the meanest villages, as to the glittering golden College of Magi in Cumberland. Meanest villages, there's a thing where the words for common folk become insults. Like, common actually is okay. Well, it's a little bit obsolete now, but a word for being mean is also be common. Perhaps nowhere is this more astonishing than the vast necropolis outside of Navarra city. Unlike most of the other followers of Andraste, Navarrans do not burn their dead. Instead, they carefully preserve the bodies and seal them in elaborate tombs. Some of the wealthiest Navarrans begin construction of their own tombs while quite young, and these become incredible palaces, complete with gardens, bathhouses, ballrooms, utterly silent, kept only for the dead. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Enchantress Color by Brother Jan TV. That's kind of weird. I didn't get the impression that there was... Why would there be an attempt to stop people from traveling from Orlais to Navarra? And also this kind of thing where I feel this is a little bit anachronistic. I don't think that borders from the Middle Ages were that closely controlled. Well, those borders were technically probably set in a particular spot, but also is kind of a thing of like only as far as you could actually exert your power, like if you, and having soldiers on the border, like controlling just regular foot traffic, like might be beyond most places to actually enforce. Enigma of Kirkwall. It is as we thought. The quarries of Kirkwall were found after the city was sacked by the Imperium, and after they started constructing the city. The Imperium found the mineral wealth, not the indigenous people. The histories give conflicting accounts on who lived here before the Imperium. Some say the Alamari, some say the Defads. We do know it was a barbarian people who had little need of the metals in the hills. So why did the Imperium come here in such force? It is hard to disprove Brother Mikhail's story that the natural harbour would be important for their armies. But magisters ruled, not common men. What barrier would a simple sea pose to them? The wars with the Almari wouldn't start until centuries later. Each clue we find only leads to more questions, but we will not give up. Underneath a pile of small boulders carved with curious markings and signed the Band of Three. Well, I mean, yes, as much as it wouldn't be an issue for the magisters, like the people who actually use magic, but they'd probably be a small portion of the population. Then the rest of them would need harbors. And, magisters would probably recognize that yes, I might be able to just, fly over the ocean, though, that'd be a lot of personal effort on their part, unless they, need to be there quickly. But, yeah, I feel a harbor, even if you don't need to move armies, would be useful. Embrium. Embrium are flowers from the orchid family. So I've heard some things about orchids, that they're really pretty demanding with where they will grow, at least the ones I've heard of. Perhaps I'm thinking with ones, but I don't think they're just found growing out like that. Its therapeutic qualities were actually discovered because of the Imperium's exceptional beauty. The beloved daughter of Lord Ignace Pulnek of Orlais, doesn't have a name, fell victim to a terrible sickness of the lungs, which her healers were unable to cure. That's something. The question is okay. There are, it kind of depends on exactly which game you're in, but I think it was Inquisition that didn't actually have a healing spell. But yeah, so you have magical healing. Do you also have magical cure disease using this? What about poisons? Thinking the girl would soon perish, her parents surrounded her bed with brightly colored flowers, hoping that they would bring some warmth and cheer in her last days. Oddly enough, the girl began to recover from her illness and grew stronger every day. Her parents were baffled but overjoyed. The healers would eventually learn that the fragrance of one of the flowers eased the child's breathing. The flower was an embrium, and later became known as Salubrious Embrium. The other variant has certain magical properties and is known as Dark Embrium, from an excerpt from the Botanical Compendium by Innis Arnesia, botanist. Telvashoth. Being lost in an ancient winter ruin in northern Ravine is highly overrated. And then I found myself beset by several bands of Kunari, apparently working in concert. I fled and managed to hide in a little village by the name of Vindar. The people there, mostly humans and elves, were devout followers of the Qun. It was the most organized village I'd ever laid eyes on. The houses were identical and arranged almost perfect octagonal lines. The fields were well tended and apparently communal, but there were signs of damage everywhere, as if the town had suffered repeated sieges. Buildings shattered, fields burned, and a great many empty houses. I spent the night in the home of Vindar's matriarch, who introduced herself only as Seer. When I tried to regale my hostess with the tales of the Qunari assailants, I discovered something. Qunari, the Seer said, are the people who follow the Qun. Her people, those born to Qunari society, who reject the Qun, are called the Vashoth, meaning the Grey Ones. These Grey Ones must leave their homes, for they have no place among the Qunari. Sadly, many turn against society that cast them out. These outcasts call themselves Tel-Vashoth, the true Grey Ones. Often, they have no skills to make an honest living, so they sell themselves into service, usually becoming mercenaries. Even the most inept fighter among the Qunari race possesses prodigious size and intimidating visage. These, she informed me, were my attackers in the countryside, the same bands that wreaked havoc on the Vindar. The Tel-Vashoth wage a bitter war against the Qunari, and sometimes against Order itself. They are no match for the Qunari army, so they generally strike at farms, travelers, and those who stray too far from Qunari protection. I was lucky to escape with my life from the Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Chad TV. Yes, this is a case in which the Qunari can both refer to a race of people, but also adherence to a religion. Though the Qun might not entirely be a religion, but Tevinter the Magisters. Before it became the Imperium, Tevinter was ruled by a dynasty of kings. And long before the Chantry, there was a circle of magi, the society of mages in each city. The titles our modern circles use. Enchanter, Senior Enchanter, First Enchanter, all originate here. But above the First Enchanter, the circles of Tevinter had another office, Magister. The Magisters formed a council of the most powerful mages in the kingdom. They convened in Minrathous and held dominion over all magic in the land. When Denarius seized the throne in 1195 Ancient, the court of the Magisters became the royal court, and Magister was the only title of nobility recognized in Tevinter. The Imperium today, is a magocracy. Political power is solely in the hands of the Magisters, who come only from the ranks of the Circle. Every young mage aspires to be a Magister's apprentice, because it's the best chance of ascending to the rank of Magister themselves. From Black City, Black Divine, a study of the Tevinter Imperium by Sister Patrine, Chantry Scholar. Alright, and that appears to be everything for this one. Thank you for watching, do any relevant things YouTube's buttons, and have a nice day.